I always thought helping your children was supposed to be rewarding, not humiliating, but maybe I should have seen it coming. Name's Susan. I'm 62 years old, retired early after 35 years as a school librarian. I've never been rich, but I managed my money smart, paid off my mortgage, saved what I could, and lived modestly. My only daughter, Olivia, was always the dreamer. Art school, travel, finding herself. I didn't mind it. She was bright, full of life, and different from me in every way. Maybe that's why I loved her so fiercely, and when she married Nate, a smooth-talking guy with big, startup energy, I wanted to believe the best. They had a baby, my sweet grandson Liam, and moved into a tiny condo with too many stairs and not enough space to SO when Olivia came to me crying about how hard things were. I listened when she said, "Mom, if we had a real house, with a yard, it would change everything." I believed her, and when she asked if I'd be willing to sell my home to help them afford a down payment, God help me, I did it. I sold the house my late husband and I bought together. The home where Olivia grew up. Where I planted the dogwood tree in the front yard after he passed. It hurt. But I told myself it was temporary. I moved into the in-law unit in their new house. Just until I got on their feet. They called it the arrangement, I called it sacrifice. At first, it was okay. I cooked, helped with Liam, paid for groceries. I gave them space and never asked for a thing in return, but over time, the warmth faded. I noticed little things, Olivia getting short with me, Nate making snide comments about privacy. Liam was the only one who still looked at me like I mattered, and then came the talk. "You've been here almost a year, Mom," Olivia said one morning, her tone clipped. I blinked. Yes, and? Well, it's time to discuss boundaries. Me and Nate need our own space. You mean, you want me to leave? Not right away, she said. But soon. Like, by the end of the month. I stared at her. Olivia. I sold my house for you. I didn't force you to. Those 5 words hit me like a slap. I walked back to my tiny room. Sat on the edge of the bed. And I realized, I wasn't family here. I was an inconvenience, but I wasn't done yet. They thought I had nowhere to go. They thought I was naive. They were wrong. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there in that little in-law unit I had paid for with the blood and bones of my past, wondering how the daughter I loved more than my own breath could look me in the eye and say, "You have until the end of the month." Like I was a tenant. No. Worse, like a burden, and it wasn't just Olivia anymore. Nate had this way of making me feel invisible. Like when I'd walk into the kitchen and he'd suddenly remember a phone call he had to take. Or when I'd wash the dishes and he'd say, "You don't have to act like a maid, Susan." Always with that little laugh. Like a joke that wasn't funny. At first, I told myself it was just stress. Maybe they were tired. Maybe I was reading too much into it, but I wasn't. One morning, I overheard them whispering in the hallway, "Olivia, she's not going to leave. Unless we push her. Nate, I told you this would happen. She's guilt-tripping us. We need the space. Just stand firm." Guilt-tripping. Do you know what it's like to hear your own child accuse you of manipulation? Because you exist in the same house as them, I stayed in my little room the rest of that day. I didn't speak. I didn't cry. I started to plan. I made a list, where to go. What I still had. What they didn't know, they assumed I gave them everything, but I hadn't. I sold my house, yes. But I'd kept a quiet savings account in a credit union out of town. Something I set up years ago when my husband died. I never told anyone about it. The old school, I know, but sometimes old school is survival, and as much as it hurt, I started to study my daughter. Really study her. The way she flinched when bills came in. The way she scrolled Zillow like it was therapy. The way she whispered with Nate in the garage about flipping and cash flow. Turns out, they weren't as secure as they looked, but they'd stretched themselves thin. Too thin. I started to see cracks. Nate yelling at a contractor over the phone. Olivia stressed out about preschool tuition. One night, I heard her crying behind the bathroom door. Part of me wanted to help. Part of me still loved her, but a bigger part whispered, "No more." That weekend, I took Liam to the park. Just the 2 of us. We sat on a bench by the swings. He looked up at me and said, "Mommy says you're moving." I smiled, gentle. "Yep. That's what she wants." "Why?" "Good question, kid, you ever play tag?" I asked. "And someone tags you and says, you're it, but you don't want to play anymore?" He nodded. "Yeah, I hide when I don't want to play." I leaned in. "Well, sometimes grown-ups try to make you play their game. Even when it's not fair." He thought about it. Then said, "Can you hide too?" I chuckled. "Maybe. But I've got a better idea." By the next week, I was already talking to a friend from church who'd recently turned her farmhouse into a short-term rental. It wasn't much, but it was safe, clean, and had doors that locked from the inside, which suddenly felt very important. I didn't tell Olivia. Instead, I started moving small things into my car. Books. Photos. My husband's watch. Things that meant something. I kept it quiet. Then came the night they sat me down again. This time, Nate was officially there. As "Susan," he said, "all business, we've found a place for you. It's a senior apartment complex a few miles away. We even toured it. For you." They were grinning, like they expected me to be grateful. "Oh," I said, blinking. "That was very thoughtful of you." They looked relieved. I smiled. I didn't tell them I already had my own place lined up. I didn't tell them I'd already changed the beneficiary on the life insurance, or that my will had been updated, or that the deed to their house, which was still partially in my name, was now flagged with legal restrictions, because I knew something they didn't. They needed me more than I needed them. A few nights later, I left. I waited until they were asleep, took one last look around, kissed Liam's doorframe, and drove off. No note. No tears, just silence, and one hell of a plan. You'd be surprised how quiet life can be when no one's yelling at you with a smile. The farmhouse I moved into wasn't fancy. Just 2 bedrooms, some creaky wood floors, and a wraparound porch that caught the morning sun. But it was mine. It was peace, and for the first few days, I did nothing. No texts. No calls. No social media. I became a ghost, not to the world. Just to them. It took less than a week before Olivia started calling. Then texting. Then leaving voicemails. "Mom? Where are you? Are you okay? Nate says you're being childish. Why are you ignoring me?" Funny how silence can scream louder than a fight. I listened to each message once. Never replied. Then I called Michelle, my lawyer. Yep. I had a lawyer now, because even though I moved out quietly, I wasn't done with them. Not even close. You see, what Olivia and Nate didn't know was that I never fully signed over the house deed. I'd sold my house to help them, yes. But we agreed I'd be co-owner of the new one. For legal protection, Olivia had said she assumed I'd never do anything with that power, but assumptions are dangerous. I gave Michelle everything, bank receipts, text logs, dates of conversations. She said, "Susan, you have more leverage than you think." Music to my ears. We started proceedings to officially remove my name from the house, but only after placing a protective lien on the property. Which meant, if they tried to sell it or refinance it without my signature, they'd hit a legal wall. And the best part, that house they loved so much? I helped fund 70% of the down payment, which meant I had a claim. While Michelle handled the paperwork, I focused on rebuilding. I got a part-time job at the local library, felt like slipping back into my old skin. The people there smiled at me, treated me like a person, not like a ghost in the corner of someone else's life. Every now and then, I'd get updates from mutuals. "Olivia's been asking about you. Nate's been real edgy at the gym. Liam's been quieter at daycare." That last one hurt. I missed him, but I also knew, going back wasn't the answer. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Then, something interesting happened. Michelle forwarded me an email. It was from Olivia, sent to the title company. "Can we remove my mother's name from the property? She no longer lives here and isn't contributing." Contributing. Wow. Michelle replied, very officially, "Due to the equity percentage provided by Ms. Monroe and her documented partial ownership, all title modifications must go through formal court proceedings. Please refer to attached lien." Boom. That Was when the real silence began. Olivia stopped calling, but Nate, he started. One voicemail, then another. Look, Susan. We just need you to sign a few forms. No big deal. This is creating a lot of problems for us. You're punishing your own daughter. Think about Liam. Oh, I was thinking about Liam, that sweet boy who used to sit in my lap while I read him Where the Wild Things Are. Who brought me dandelions like they were gold. Who asked why I had to leave. He didn't deserve any of this, but I couldn't protect him from them, so I protected myself. One day, I got a knock at the farmhouse. It was Jenny, Olivia's childhood best friend. She looked uncomfortable, holding a reusable grocery bag and a six-pack of sparkling water. Can we talk? She asked. I let her in. We sat at the kitchen table. She looked around like she expected I'd be living in squalor. Olivia's struggling, she said carefully. Oh? She thought you'd come back. Or give her the house, or... I don't know. She's not handling things well. I took a sip of tea. She kicked me out. Jenny. Jenny nodded. I know. Then she paused. She regrets it. But she also doesn't know how to fix it. Maybe. She doesn't get to fix it, I said, surprising even myself. Maybe this is the part where she learns not everything gets a do-over. Jenny nodded slowly. Fair. She left not long after, and I realized, people were starting to see not just the story Olivia told, but the truth. One more thing, before I left the house, I installed a nanny cam in my old room. Not because I wanted to spy, but because I didn't trust Nate, and guess what I saw when I checked it? Him in my room. Going through my things. Looking angry. Talking on the phone and saying things like, she's gonna pay for this. I sent the footage to Michelle, and just like that, the real leverage began. There's something powerful about being underestimated. All my life, I played by the rules. I paid my bills, respected my neighbors, raised my child with love and books and honesty. I thought that would be enough, but sometimes, the people you love the most are the ones who think you'll never fight back. I had no interest in drama. No intention to burn their house down, figuratively or otherwise. But I was done playing nice, and it was time they felt it. After we caught Nate snooping through my things on camera, Michelle and I got strategic. The footage was enough to prove intent to intimidate, and we made sure that was known. We sent a formal warning through legal channels. Any further harassment would trigger a restraining order. The silence after that, glorious, but things weren't quiet on their end. Word got around our small town about how I'd sold my home to help Olivia. How I was pushed out like a stray cat once they got what they wanted. How Nate tried to snoop through my private things. How I walked away without saying a word, only to block their every move from behind the scenes, their golden image. Shattered. Parents at Liam's preschool started asking questions. Nate's angel investor buddies started pulling back. And the sweet couple from church that had been helping them renovate the kitchen? Gone. It turns out people still care about decency, especially when the victim isn't screaming, just smiling and shutting doors. 3 weeks later, I got a knock at my farmhouse door. It was Olivia. She looked nothing like the daughter I remembered. Pale, tired, and nervously clutching a manila envelope. Hi, she said softly. Hi, I replied, flat. Can I talk to you? I stepped aside. She sat down at the same kitchen table where Jenny once sat. Her hands shook slightly as she opened the envelope. Inside, a handwritten letter. I didn't know how to say this, she said. So I wrote it. I didn't touch the letter. I'm not proud of how I treated you. I was stressed, scared, trying to hold everything together. And when you left, it hit me. You really were the only adult in the house. I raised an eyebrow. And Nate? Her jaw tensed. We're separating. Of course they were. She pushed the envelope toward me. I know I have no right to ask for anything. But I'd like to fix what I can. I signed my portion of the deed over to you. I blinked. She looked down. It's not an apology. It's just acknowledgement. I didn't say anything for a long time, then I nodded. Thank you for bringing this, I said, placing the envelope on the counter. You can go now. That night, I sat on the porch with a blanket and some sweet tea. The stars were out, the crickets were loud, and for the first time in a long, long time. My soul was quiet. I wasn't just free from them. I was free of them. They thought they were playing chess, but I was playing the long game, and in the end, I kept my dignity. They lost their masks, and the house, well, it's back on the market now. Turns out, I've got a little adventure in mind, maybe the coast, or maybe somewhere with grandkids who actually appreciate story time. Either way, I'm not afraid of starting over anymore, because I didn't just survive betrayal, I outgrew it.
I used to believe cheating was something that happened to other people. You know what I mean, those messy couples, constant fighting, trust issues. That wasn't us. We were the solid ones, at least. That's what I thought, until I opened his phone one morning and saw a message that shattered everything. It wasn't even some flirty text or a half-naked selfie. No, it was worse. Way worse. It was a thank you. Thanks for last night. I haven't laughed like that in years. You're amazing. No name, no context. Just those words, sitting there like a ticking bomb in his notifications. And the thing is, he was in the shower, singing, like nothing was wrong. I remember standing there, phone in my hand, stomach in my throat, listening to the water run. Every second felt like an hour. I kept reading that one sentence over and over until the letters stopped making sense. Thank you for what? Laughing? What the hell happened last night? We were together last night, weren't we? Except, we weren't. Not for the whole evening. He said he was meeting an old college friend for a drink. Someone I'd never met. He'd even shown me a photo from years ago, proof that they were just catching up. I didn't even blink. Why would I? He kissed me goodbye like usual, told me not to wait up, and said, love you. And now this. I should have confronted him right then and there, right? I didn't. I wish I could say I was brave, that I threw the phone and demanded answers. But I froze. I shoved the phone back onto the nightstand, walked into the kitchen like nothing happened, and smiled when he came out of the bathroom with his towel half draped around his waist. He kissed me on the cheek and asked if I wanted pancakes. Pancakes. I nodded, and in that moment, I made a decision. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to beg him to love me the way I deserved. I was going to get even, and trust me, he never saw it coming. That whole week, I played the part of the clueless, doting girlfriend. Smiles, kisses, good morning texts, all of it. But inside, I was unraveling. Every I love you from him felt like a splinter under my skin. Every time he laughed at one of my jokes, I had to remind myself not to scream. I wasn't even sure what I was holding on to anymore, our relationship, or just the idea of it. But I needed time. I needed proof. That one message could have meant anything, right? Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I'd lost my mind. Maybe I was just another insecure, jealous woman making up stories in her head. So I did what any marketing manager with decent Wi-Fi and a background in analytics would do. I started digging. The first thing I did was sync his iCloud to my laptop. He never logged out. Rookie move. Messages, call logs, photos, everything came pouring in like a digital flood. I didn't even know what I was looking for at first. I just knew I'd know it when I saw it. And oh, I saw it. A different number. No name attached. But the texts were intimate. I can still smell you on my jacket. I keep thinking about that thing you whispered in my ear. Same time next week. There were no photos, no full names, but there was enough. I scrolled. Weeks of messages, hidden in plain sight, mostly late at night or when I was out of town for work. One message stood out though. She has no idea, lol. You're dangerous. I had to close my laptop after that. My hands were shaking hard. For 2 whole hours I sat on the floor of my bedroom, staring at the wall, replaying every lie he ever told me like it was a playlist on loop. Every I'm just tired, every you worry too much, every time. He blamed me for not being spontaneous enough. I felt stupid, weak, disposable. But then something in me shifted. I stopped crying. I stopped second-guessing. And I started planning. Because see, what Brandon, let's go ahead and name him now. What Brandon didn't know was that I'm very good at watching patterns. My job is literally to predict consumer behavior. I spot what people click, when they click it, and why, and right now, Brandon was my algorithm. I knew when he texted her, knew when he lied to me, knew what he covered his tracks with, usually some team dinner excuse or a sudden need for alone time. So I made a calendar, literally, color-coded hour by hour. Brandon thought he was the only one cheating? Please. I was about to cheat smarter with strategy, precision, and receipts. First step, gather everything. I took screenshots, exported, texts, backed up his photos, even tracked his GPS history through a shared ride app we used once for a couple's trip. Turns out, he'd been to the same bar 3 weeks in a row, on nights with the guys. Cute. Second step, find out who she was. I couldn't just confront him with mystery messages. I needed a name, a face, something solid. So I did the thing he always made fun of me for. I checked his Venmo. There it was. A payment to Marley with the fire emoji. He'd sent her money at 1:42 a.m. with a comment that said worth it. Double quotes gross. So I looked her up. She wasn't private. Classic mistake. She had 6,000 followers, called herself a wellness blogger, and had an entire highlight reel titled Date Nights. Guess who appeared in one of the blurred out background shots? Yep, Brandon, face partially hidden, but the sleeve tattoo was a dead giveaway. I knew that sleeve. I'd memorized every inch of it while laying next to him at a M, wondering why he didn't reach for me anymore. Third step, decide how to break him. Because yelling wouldn't satisfy me, crying wouldn't fix me. No, I didn't want just revenge. I wanted justice. I wanted humiliation. But more than anything, I wanted him to feel small. So I smiled at him every day that week, made him dinner, laughed at his jokes, let him think he was still in control. And every time he fell asleep next to me, I'd whisper into the dark, "You have no idea what's coming." And he didn't, but soon, he would. I knew this wasn't going to be some quick, messy showdown. Nope. This was a full-on chess game, and I was 3 moves ahead. Step 1. Control the narrative. Brandon was used to controlling the story, telling me where he was, who he was with, spinning lies like a pro. But suddenly, his grip slipped. I created a burner Instagram account under a fake name, Sophie Green, and started following Marley, the wellness blogger. I needed to know everything. Her routine, her hangouts, her patterns. What I found was gold. Marley posted stories of their secret dates, sometimes tagging locations, sometimes dropping hints about the best hidden spots. Enough to piece together where Brandon was sneaking off. One Friday night, while Brandon was working late, I showed up at one of those spots, a rooftop bar with dim lights and a city view. I didn't confront Marley or Brandon. I just took pictures, sent them anonymously to a few of Brandon's close friends and some mutual coworkers. The whispers started. Step 2. Expose the lies at work. Brandon always bragged about his trustworthy image at the office. I knew some of his colleagues were tight with me too, so I quietly reached out. No drama, just facts. I sent a carefully worded email with photos and screenshots to his HR manager. The email had a subject line that read, confidential, possible. Workplace conduct concern, need discretion. I didn't ask for immediate action, just an investigation. That email shook things up. Suddenly, Brandon was the topic of watercolor gossip, and his usual charming facade cracked. Step 3. Turn the tables on Brandon's pride. Brandon was always proud of his player image, but no one knew he was also a narcissist who hated public humiliation. So I wrote an anonymous blog post. I detailed how to spot a cheater who thinks he's untouchable. I sprinkled in anecdotes and clues only someone close to him could know. The post went viral in a niche community he frequented. Comments poured in, people sharing similar stories, warning others, and tagging Brandon's real name. He tried to laugh it off, but the damage was done. Step 4. The final move. I waited for the perfect moment. One weekend when Brandon thought I was out of town visiting my sister, instead, I showed up at Marley's place. I wasn't there to scream or cry. I handed her my phone, showed her the texts, the photos, the payments. Her eyes went wide. That moment? Priceless. Marley didn't know the full story, but she knew enough to walk away. And guess what? Brandon got 2 messages that night from Marley. We need to talk about everything. From me, game over. The next day, Brandon called me. Non-stop. I didn't answer, because sometimes the best revenge is the silence after the storm. The moment Brandon started calling me non-stop, I felt a strange calm wash over me. I wasn't the desperate, broken girl he thought I was. I was something else now. Something stronger. T first. He begged. Please, Lena, let's talk. I made a mistake. I'll do anything to fix this. We can get through this. I read the messages once, twice, then deleted them all, because it wasn't about forgiveness. It wasn't about reconciliation. It was about me. I needed to finish this on my own terms. The blog post kept gaining traction. Comments flooded and some supportive, some from strangers sharing their own stories of betrayal. People reached out, privately, thanking me for speaking up, for showing them they weren't alone. That's when the real storm hit. Brandon's carefully constructed world started crumbling. His friends distanced themselves. His colleagues whispered behind his back. Even his family confronted him after seeing the viral blog post. He lost contracts. His side hustles dried up. The once charming, confident man was suddenly isolated. I watched it all happen from the sidelines, not with joy, but with a quiet sense of justice. One evening, I got a call from Marley. Her voice was shaky but sincere. "I never wanted to hurt you," she said. "But I'm glad you showed me the truth before it was too late." We talked for hours that night. No blame, no anger, just two women who got caught in the same web. That conversation healed something inside me, but the final blow came unexpectedly. A week later, Brandon showed up at my door, this time in person. He looked defeated, older, smaller. "Lena," he whispered, "I lost everything because of you." I let him talk, listened without interrupting. Then I said, "You lost yourself, Brandon. Not because of me, but because you lied. Because you betrayed the person who loved you the most." He left without another word, and I closed the door behind him. In that moment, I realized something important. Revenge isn't about ruining someone else's life. It's about reclaiming your own. Since then, I've rebuilt myself, focused on my career, my passions, and my peace. I'm no longer defined by his betrayal. I'm defined by my strength to rise above it. If you're listening and you've been betrayed, know this. You are not alone. You are stronger than the hurt. And sometimes, the best revenge is simply moving on and thriving. If you had asked me a year ago what I'd do if someone I loved betrayed me, I probably would have said something naive. Something soft like, I'd talk it through, or I'd try to understand why. Maybe even, I'd forgive them. People make mistakes, because back then, I still believed betrayal was an accident, some lapse in judgment or weakness of character. I didn't understand yet that some people don't stumble into betrayal. They walk toward it, fully conscious, fully aware, fully selfish. Brandon didn't make a mistake. He made a series of choices, calculated, deliberate, and cruel. And the most terrifying part wasn't the cheating itself. It was how easily he did it, how natural it came to him. How I was just one version of himself away from the stranger who lied, laughed, and kissed two women in the same week like it was nothing. But I wasn't innocent either. Not in the way I thought I was. Because for months, maybe even years, I'd been betraying myself. I silenced my instincts. I shrunk my voice. I rationalized away the gut feelings, the late-night doubts, the subtle red flags. I made myself smaller. To make him more comfortable. I became the version of me that would be easy to love, easy to manage, easy to lie to, and I stayed. Because love makes you stay long past the point of self-respect. Because loneliness convinces you that almost enough is better than nothing. But then came the message. That one stupid, careless, "thank you for last night" message. And everything inside me shifted. The illusion shattered, and in its place was clarity, sharp, cold, and clean. He didn't deserve my grief. He deserved my silence. And eventually, he earned my rage. But my revenge wasn't fire and fury. It wasn't dramatic confrontations or screaming matches in public. It was quiet, controlled, surgical. It was truth, weaponized. And as I watched him spiral, his lies unraveling, his fake image collapsing, I didn't feel joy. Not exactly. What I felt was relief, because for the first time in years, I wasn't questioning my reality. I wasn't begging someone to treat me like I mattered. I wasn't trying to force love where love had died long ago. I was finally choosing me. Let me be clear. Revenge doesn't heal the wound. It doesn't erase the nights you spent crying into your pillow or the days you walked around pretending everything was okay when it wasn't. But sometimes, revenge is what gets you through the fire. Sometimes, it's the bridge between heartbreak and rebirth, because what people never tell you about betrayal is this: it doesn't just break your heart, it breaks your identity. It makes you question your worth, your sanity, your judgment. But here's the truth I clawed my way toward. You are not broken. You are not unlovable. You are not to blame for someone else's deception. You are still whole even when someone tries to convince you that you're only worth what they can use you for. In the end, Brandon lost more than my trust. He lost access to the version of me who believed in him. He lost the woman who would have moved heaven and earth to protect him. And he has to live with that, not me. I've rebuilt my life piece by piece, not in spite of what he did, but because of it. I'm not the same Lena I was before. I'm sharper now, calmer, stronger. I know my worth, and I protect it fiercely. I don't love cautiously, I love wisely. I don't trust blindly, I trust slowly. And I never, ever silence my intuition again. So if you've been betrayed, if someone made you feel invisible, disposable, replaceable, let this be your reminder. You have the right to burn the bridge and never look back. You have the power to write the next chapter on your own terms. And sometimes walking away without looking over your shoulder, that's the most beautiful revenge there is.